Welcome all, Raymond Stream Gamers. This is a continuation of my previous video called Simple Airports CKK7. This is going to be referred to as the custom airport. So that video was more about just to give some basis of it. So look it up. It'll give you some general instructions that will help navigate you through some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this video. This video, we're going to probably do it in one or maybe two parts. I'm not sure exactly how many parts it'll take. I'm going to try to keep the video for each of the videos somewhere within that 1 hour range. I'll do my best to keep it as short as I can, but there's lots to discuss. So the starting point is, or this is what the airport looks like after I have created it, and this is more of a true representation of the actual airport that you will see here, which is called Harv's Airport, CKK7. Okay, so we have a terminal building, a couple of hangars, a workshop, another hangar, and that hangar down in the end does not actually exist at this airport, but I put that there just because I was doing another testing system. Anyways, so I'm going to switch over to show you what the actual airport actually looks like defaultly, and we'll begin our process. Okay, so we're here. We're back in the sim, and with the default airport. So let's go here. Now, so this is what the default airport looks like now, and this is not, a shot to Microsoft for their inability to replicate this actual tiny little airport or airstrip. There's, thousands and thousands and thousands of them around the world, and I understand this is all AI generated and so forth. But this is the airstrip, what it looks like in 2020. Defaultly and or 2024 defaultly, they both look the same. When we build this airstrip, we're going to keep these buildings here because those buildings are fairly closely represented, and quite honestly, I haven't actually modeled the true buildings that should be there, but we could, just haven't done it yet. Okay, so one of the first things that we got to do is we've got to get rid of the buildings that are here that are not accurate in favor of putting the right buildings in place. Second thing we want to do is we want to deal with the runway, the taxiways, and that kind of stuff. And what I want to do is I want to kind of go over that with you and show you, what are some of the methods in which you can get rid of existing stuff that you don't want. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is we actually need to build the project. This is a thing that we go here, we go new project. We're going to select the project and put it in its location where it belongs. Let me get to where I want to put it. Make sure that there's no project there. There is none. I was working on something here, so I'll need to get out of this project. Close. There we go. I'll close that off. Now this is what you'll actually see. Now, open. No, I don't want to open. I want to go new project, and we want to store it in a given place. Yours will be different than mine, but I have a spot here that I'm going to work with in this directory for the tutorials. Now, we're going to be working through this project in possibly multiple videos, because I want to try to keep the videos smaller and kind of segmented. This is one part of it, this is another part of it, and this is another part of it to its completion. Anyways. Oops. I'm going to make that 4. I'm going to get rid of one. Okay. So your naming can be whatever your naming is. The creator and company, they can be whatever they are. Click on package. Next, airport. Give it a name. I typically give it the same name that I did in the previous menu, but again, yours can be different. Now, this is going to override or make the attempt to override the existing airport that's here once you put it in. So that's why we use override an existing airport as opposed to create a new airport anywhere. I've never attempted to create a new port anywhere and then use the same ICO code. I don't think it works, but it doesn't make sense that it would. So we'll create the airport. Now what you're going to see over here, your mileage will be different. I've created this airport several times, and the SDK recognizes a previous creation, and so it's actually done this through some work within the project. This is the project that's been created. So if you really wanted to relabel that there to something else, you could go in here and edit these XML files. If there's some interest in how to do that, make a comment in the comment section. I'll make a short video and explain some of the directory structures and the XML files and so forth. Anyways, for this demonstration, we're going to leave this just the way it is. So we're here now. When we hit scenery, we notice that our project inspector it has changed its view, right? So from here to there, it changes its view. Okay, so I'm just gonna limit some background noise in the house, and I want to eliminate some of that. Okay. So once we've got here, and we click on this, we click Load in Editor. That loads the project within the editor, and we're presented with this, which is the actual airport. And it's because the region is where I am, and mostly because I've actually done this project a few times over, and so I think it just recognizes that the project exists. So now our next step will be to get ourselves back into this. Yes. No, we want this window. Okay. So our next steps is we want to recognize that the airport's region is this blue circle around the airport. That can be changed simply by going to Editor, not Editor, View, Properties. So we have this property window open up now, which is the whatever you select here is the properties of that selection. Okay. In this case, we can see here that the object radius is a 2,000 meter radius. Oops. So this whole area is 2,000 meters, but you can clearly see the airport is right there. So we're going to change that. We're going to make that, say, 700. Is that a reasonable number? That's fairly reasonable. And so now you can see that the radius of the airport airstrip is kind of more defined into itself. Okay, so that's step number one. Now that we've got that, step number two is going to be addressing these erroneous buildings that we don't want here, and then also dealing with the runway aprons and so forth that are there that are, we want to remove those. That's the long and short of it. Okay. There's a number of ways that we can remove the buildings that are there. I need to get one of the windows opened up. Objects. So there's the objects menu right there. So within the objects menu, we have exclusion rectangle. I'll discuss that briefly, but if you do an exclusion rectangle, you will see on the cursor now is this big rectangular shape. If I place that down there, then if I go back over to the properties window, you can see that all of the objects have been removed, but here you can individualize. You can say, no, I don't want to remove everything within that rectangle. I only want to remove certain specific things within the rectangle. So for example, if I move that rectangle, oh, I know what I gotta do. I gotta go here, I gotta take that check mark out, and I go back to properties, click on this, and now I can grab this and move this. So what I'm gonna do is, you see the windsock, which is right there. So within that rectangle now is the windsock. So if I come in here and look for the windsock right here and click on that, you can now remove that windsock. Okay, so that's one method in which to get rid of, i.e. the windsock. I typically don't use extrusion or exclusion rectangles a lot unless there's something stubborn in there that I want to get rid of. The next thing that we want to kind of go over and talk about is polygons. So a polygon is, if I click on this, have I not clicked on? Yep. So now at the end of the cursor, you can see that little red plus sign. So if I were to start here, holding the left control key down, click. Remember when I keep these buildings, so click. I'm just going to go around this one. And I also want to click. I want to remove some of these trees back here. Something like that. So the last click is a double click, and that finishes it off. Always remember to take this one place click out. So we remove that, and now you have a polygon and the airport. That's the only two entities we have. But we have this polygon that goes around the buildings we want to remove. So with the polygon selected, click on properties, and here you can see buildings. So we can decide to remove specific entities of buildings. More often than not, remove them all, gets rid of it all. But it did not help us with the trees that are here. So let's get rid of those trees. Before we do that, we're going to get out of the snow so we can see everything that is under the ground. And so now you see there's a bunch of trees in here. What we want to do, like I say, is we want to get rid of those trees. We can do that by going to, let me get that, close that off. Vegetation. Click on vegetation. Notice the trees kind of ramped up, and that's because the scaling is at 33%. If I put the scaling to 0, it takes all the trees out. I could, leave it like that, or leave it like that, or I could just create a great big forest, that kind of thing. But in this case, we want them all gone because I want this landscaping that's right here. Okay, and notice how the polygon is kind of not configured the way I want it. Okay, so remember, when we put this polygon down, we just put it down just kind of willy-nilly, and now we're going to modify, edit the polygon to suit the needs that we have. We click on that, we can drag that over there, we can put that up over there, so it still hides the building. We can move this line here over here. Now, you note that I'm using these arrows. I use these arrows because it moves it in only that direction rather than this kind of a scenario. So for those that are, somewhat concerned about having things line up properly and getting precision and stuff like that, you can do that just with this. Now look at the blue arrow, and you can see the blue arrow is now perfectly parallel with the actual polygon coming down here. I'm going to pull this one over here, so you can see that if you want to, you can line these things up. You can see the angle of this arrow versus the angle of that tells me that I should probably bring that up a little bit. Now, you don't have to do these things. These are the things that I do just because I prefer it. I prefer to use straight lines and stuff like that. I think if I get rid of that, there, okay. So in here will be a workshop. That workshop that we originally, when we looked at the completed airport, that'll be kind of where the workshop is. Okay. So we've removed the buildings that we want to remove. We're in good shape there. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to remove the aprons and runway and all of that stuff. So we could go back to exclusion. Exclusion rectangle. We could put one of those back in, and just note that you can move these things around. You can narrow them, you can widen them, right? So this is customizable. So if you don't want to necessarily affect, the entirety of it all, you can do just that. But for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. Oops. So I'm going to bring this all the way down to the end of the runway, which is way down here. So again, if we go into the properties and we remove this and we say, okay, what do we want to take out of here? Well, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong one. Just wait 1 minute. We're not going to use the extrusion or the exclusion. So we can get rid of all of that because none of that was important to here. But what we do want to use is if we click on the airport here, under objects, under property, we're looking for the delete command right there. In the delete command, it gives us the ability to delete all of these functions right here. So one of the functions that it gives us the ability to delete, I'm going to look for it. It's the airport or the runways, which is right there. Boop. So that got rid of the runways. Now, you didn't really see much because this here isn't actually laid out as a runway. So if I put that back in, it didn't really, you see some markings there, but it didn't really do much, right? So let's look at aprons right here. Boop, there. For some reason or other, in this particular airstrip, most of this was considered to be an apron. But the actual runway, which is that right there, is still there. So I'm going to remove that one as well because we're going to recreate that. Okay? So now we can see we've got our aprons are gone in here. If I were to put the aprons back on, you could see what it would do, right? But we want that gone. What I want to do is when we create our aprons, I want to kind of outline this and actually create the shape, but I want to do it with a specific type of material, okay? Anyways, so that solves that problem. We got rid of our buildings, we got rid of our aprons, we got rid of our taxiways, should they be there, and the only thing that's left now is some default ground and so forth. So we're going to put in a runway. We're going to put in some aprons, and then after that we're going to put in some buildings, and we'll kind of dress it all up with some materials and stuff like that. So first things first, we can see that more or less this is the apron, and from here this way is the taxiway. This taxiway also has a small little apron right here, and I'm going to recreate that. I'm going to show you how we go about doing that. So the first thing is we're going to put a taxiway in. Okay, objects. We're going to come down to taxi, path, and point. So we're going to use point in this case. We can decide to make it as a hold short, no draw, meaning it doesn't put it puts it as a hold short, but you don't get the hold short markings, and ILS hold short and so forth. Okay, but we're going to use normal. Click the one click placing. Well, that's a tough word for me to say. And you now see this little blue dot. So we click here. We don't have to hold the control key in order to do this. And you can get a little creative with this stuff. So you can make it kind of go around corners. Don't worry about the material that's there. We'll go through that later. We're going to create this one all the way down to right about here. You can see where it narrows, and it appears to be wider, but it actually isn't. So we're going to click there. And there's another runway. It's a grass strip right here. And we're going to click there. So that's going to be our taxiway. And again, don't worry about the materials that are laid out for the taxiway, because we're going to change that. We're also going to change things like the width of the taxiway and all that good stuff. Now, we'll remove this. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of laying it out, and then I'm going to alter and modify the whole thing to some degree. That's okay. So the runway. This is the runway right here. Okay. Now, this runway is an asphalt runway, so it needs to be replaced as such, and not this checker pattern material. And so is this as well. So we'll change that again as well. But now what we're going to do is we're going to put that runway in. And how do we do that? We click on here, and we look for runway. There's our runway. Now, for those people that are not sure about some very specific information about the airport, i.e. Runway headings and stuff like that, there are a couple of resources that you can use to find that out. One of them is a little nav map. It's a really good resource. It gives you a lot of information, and if you know where to find it, you can pull up that information. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get myself over to that region, which is right there, and then I'll drag it over so you can see it. So Nothing. So we can see that the runway is 3,169 feet long. The width is 49 feet. The direction of the runway is 3.6 and 1.8. So Little Nav Map provides us that information. If we click on Objects, Runway, I've selected Runway 3.6, one place click, and we're going to add that runway in there. Now that runway is there at whatever angle it is, and we'll change that. In the Little Nav Map, if we click on Properties, Little Nav Map suggested that it was at a 356 heading. Through some calculations, I know that this is 15 meters, and I know this is 966. But you can see that the actual, what the sim has got the runway heading at and the taxiway at and everything else doesn't coincide with Little Nav Map. So the other thing we can do is just to validate some of this information. Let me go down here and find a website. There. Pull that over while it's loading. So this website, ourairports.com/data, it has a world airport utility, so you can see all of the airports in the world, and this also includes a lot of the closed airports, airstrips, and so forth and so on. So it gives us a really broad view of what this is. And if I get conflicting information like this, I will often just come here and kind of validate, whether Little Nav Maps information is correct, or whether Microsoft Flight Sim 2024's representation is correct. All right, so now we can see these are all of the varying different airports around the world. You can kind of make decisions that you want to use North America. Hopefully that doesn't take too long to load. It apparently is taking a long time for this stuff to load. I don't know why, because it typically doesn't. So I'm going to get rid of that. I know where I want to look at an airport. It's right in here somewheres. But I guess I'm going to have to click on the world and North America. Okay, well, we'll let that load and we'll get there eventually. If you decide that you want to just kind of orientate it to match what is actually there on the ground, there's a couple of things that you can do to do that. First of all, what we'll do is we'll move it and we'll get it lined up kind of more or less where we think it should be lined up. Somewhere's in that location. Yeah. Okay. So you can click on here and you can click on that little green dot and you can just pivot it over. So that's one method, which is the method I'm going to use. There. So we got a runway. It's a little longer than what it should be, and that's okay. I will change that. This disappearing mouse business is... I wish I knew what the trick was to actually get it to stay, but I don't. As soon as I click on here, it becomes visible, but the minute I click here, it disappears. Okay, so we finally got to our here area. No, we did not. It's still loading. Wow, that's insane, the time that it takes. Okay. I can click on that. I can pull this back a little bit, right? Or but before we do that, we're gonna change the width of these taxiways. So if we click on the line, this is the taxi path. If you look here, it shows up as a taxi path as opposed to taxi points. So the points are, you can manipulate the points, move them around. You can make all kinds of decisions that you want to, maybe angle this down a little bit or that up a little bit. You can add more points in by right-clicking, and you can split the point or the path, right? So you would split it, and it would give you another point in the middle. I don't want to do any of that. What I want to do is I want to change the width, which is right here. So if the runway is a 15-meter runway, I'd imagine the taxiway could be something similar to that as well. Okay, so we'll change that width. We'll change this one as well. Now you could have done this right out of the gate, and then all of your taxiways would have had the same width and material and so forth, and that would have been a little easier, a little quicker to do this. But we're gonna get it done. I think we got it done right. There's the last one, I think. Okay, so now we got a proper width of the taxiway, which looks a little more representative of what it actually is. I don't like the material. I want this material here. So let's have a look at that and see what material that they've selected for that material. So it's runway asphalt. You can drag the material from the material editor, click here. So we want runway. Runway. And does it give me a material number? It does not. It just says runway asphalt. So this is the material editor. If you don't have that up, you can come up here and you can click on this and you can turn it on. Just bear with me. I'm going to find where it is in amongst all of this. Let's type in there ASPHALT. There it is. So that's what I want to put in replace of this material. Okay. So if I click on this, Summers in here is material concrete. I've got this highlighted. When I click on that, it changes that, right? So I can just go through here the same as I did before and just go. Finally it clicked. So one of the things that 2024 SDK has done is they've got some anomalies in here, and it's weird. For example, losing the mouse all the time, which is another weird aspect. But we'll work around it, and eventually it'll get better. There's no doubt about it. It's going to improve. So we've got our runway, our taxiway put in. The grass strip that's here, we're not going to modify that in any way. We're going to leave that just the way that is, because I think it's a good representation of what the actual airport is. But you could do the same. You could create a runway across here, assign your grass material to it, and you'd be good. This is a pretty decent representation of the runway, its deterioration and that kind of stuff. The taxiway is it's okay. It'll be good. It's better than what it was, that checker pattern concrete, which is not what this actually truly was. Okay, so we can see that if I click on this, I want to move that back just a bit because I want to expose more of the actual apron is there. I'll later on move this back later. But now I want to do an apron. Okay, so this building is sitting on concrete as well as this building sits on concrete, and so does this building will also sit on some concrete, and there's a little bit of grass here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little bit of grass there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a apron that kind of goes all the way around here. One of the things that I noticed is these rocks. I don't know why those rocks are there, but I'm hopeful that once I create the apron, and I'll raise it up a little bit just so it gets rid of those rocks. Okay, so let's create the apron and show you how to create an actual apron in there. So you can create the apron as a square, a disc apron, or a default. We're going to use default because it allows us to, with one click placing, click the add, you see the little red dot? It allows us to kind of contour it, to shape it the way we want. We'll start our shaping, say, right here. Again, control, click, 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 click. We're gonna take it out to here somewhere. Click. The building is about there, so let's click it there. This is just going to be a bit of a rough shape as to what the actual apron is. We'll customize that later on to get it to better suit. You can see it kind of does a little something there. I'll move it there. I'll move it there. I'll move it up there. I'm going to move this and cover this all in the apron. I want to delete that. Oh, I see what's happened. It's doubled the apron. Every now and again, it will do that. Why that is, I don't know. But that's okay. I'll reshape this as I go. We just pick it up again and we carry on clicking. I think we'll make it a little wider. So it appears that what I've got is I've got two aprons. I'm going to delete that because I'm not very happy with how that turned out, and I'll do it again. There. You have to be very careful on holding the control key down and other keys that you might click. It does. At times, it feels like it wants to close off the let me get through this here. I'm probably being too picky about the shape of the apron, but and the final is a double click. So that's kind of the general shape of the apron. Kind of outlined it the way it was actually there. This here is an actual road. I don't know why it's green, but it's green. but it should be road. We'll create a road going out there eventually, and we'll put it in gravel. The same thing with this stuff that's the same stuff that's here. We're going to create that as well. Get rid of that erroneous apron. Okay, so that's the way it is. Now, there is going to also be a building here, so we want an apron that goes here, and it'll kind of join itself up to this apron area. So we're going to create a new one, and add, and we'll zoom in just, well, actually what we'll do is we'll click there. I've done it again. It doubles the apron when I click and I hold the shift key down, or some other erroneous key that I'm doing, and I just don't know which one it is that is doing it. Double click them. Now you notice how we had those rocks there, but the apron is they're gone, so that part's good. Again, anytime you find yourself with your polygons maybe not suiting exactly right, you can click on those points and you can move them around. The same with the aprons. You can decide, no, this looks a little weird, I want to do that. I want to bring this maybe down a little bit, so you're going to come in here and you're going to modify those. I'm going to remove that one right there because I don't want that there. So that's going to be kind of the shape. We're going to customize these shapes and all of these things as we go. Now, what we've got is we've got material that is just less than flattering. Okay. So we can go in here, and for this example, I'm going to be using default material. I do have a video that shows you how to create and add your own specific material. Likewise, I have a video out there that shows you how to create hangers and all of that stuff. So I'm not going to go in this video, I'm not going to go over each of those individual steps. Please go back and watch some of the other videos. I'll try to put some links to some of the videos that might help you get you to where you got to get to, so that you have the appropriate information. I'll try to put some of that in the comments in the description there, so you have some of those videos to watch. But you do have the ability to add material in, specific material, get material off the internet and that kind of stuff. In this case, we're not gonna worry about that. We're gonna use some default materials. One of the things about this airport is that if you were to drive up the road here and see the apron materials, you would see there's a mishmash of varying different aprons, and that's because the aprons were poured, laid, a small little patch here and a little small little patch there, probably not unlike a lot of the really, really small municipal airports around the world. You could, if you wanted to, you could actually divide these up and create little sections and drops and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do that for this demonstration, but just to know that if all of a sudden you decided that you wanted this little section here to be kind of like one pour or one lay down of asphalt, and this would look different over here, and this would be different again, and this would be different again, you could just create these aprons individually so they were different. And then you could put various different materials to there. You can, if you go to properties, you can use something what's called fall off, okay? So what fall off does, if we look here, it's created a sharp edge, but if we use fall off and we say, no, we're gonna use a 1 meter fall off, what it's doing is it's kind of stretching the material out and kind of trying to blend it to the existing material between here and here. The more fall off you use, the more that blend is supposedly going to give you the effect that you're looking for. So you can see here now, you see how it's kind of faded, and if I zoom in a little tighter, can I? You can see how the material is kind of blended over. That's not so conducive to that's not really what you would expect from an asphalt or a concrete slab. You would expect a defined line. But if you were making a gravel, oops, let me change that to, I think the default is 2 or something like that. But if you were making this a gravel one, then yes, you would have that kind of a spread over, look between the pad and the ground, right? So you can use fall off to do that. We're not going to do that here, and the reason why I bring that up is if you had varying different pours or lays of asphalt, you could use that fall off to kind of blend and mash the two together so they didn't have those defining lines there, which would make it look kind of weird, okay? Anywho's, I'm going to just go ahead and lay this down as you know what? No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that blend right here between here and here. So I've got 2 different aprons. I'm going to show you kind of how that works. So if I were to take this and draw that back and draw this back, and now if I were to use the fall off of 5 meters, it expands my apron, right? You can see how it has expanded it. And if I move that, you know what? I'm going to use a broader there. So it's got a bit of a blend. So when we apply a given material to this, let's apply that material. And this material, we're going to give it a different material. We're going to give it not a runway, a taxiway material, shall we? We can click on this to. So now, looking for, if you put this check mark, whoops, if you put that check mark in there where it says, my mouse has disappeared, bitmap preview, it gives you the ability to look at a bit of a preview as to what this is going to look like should we decide to pick any of these. They don't seem to be any different. That's taxiway. What do we got in here? We got runway, taxiway, runway. Oh, yeah, that is asphalt, and that's what I want. Well, I guess we'll use one of these. We'll use that one. Okay, so that's what we're going to turn this one into right here, into that. And there it is, which is not unlike what we've got here. So another thing that we can do is we can kind of change what it looks like. So if you look at what it looks like, I'm gonna zoom in right there. Whoops. So you can see it's kind of coming in. So you can change that look to make it look a little different, and that's to change how transparent-ish I think it actually is, right? Intended to, right? The other thing we can do is we'll put that back where it was. The other thing we can do is we can change the tiling of 3 meters. So it's based on a 3-meter tile. So if I were to change that to, let's say, 5-meter tile, it changes the outlook or the look of it as well. And the final one is you can use these texture offsets to kind of manipulate and make it look different. Okay, I do this just because I want you to be able to see that these are some of the functions that you can use. I'm not going to do any of those, right? In fact, I'll leave that one where it is because that's what I've changed it to already. But that's what we've got. Now, if these were really different from one another, you would actually see a very different look to it. So let's pick something that is very different. The unfortunate thing is there's no default real differences in color. What's under the test? It's under Runway. Let's get rid of this filter. Let's go to taxi there. Let's go to gravel. Let's use gravel as the different material. Put that in there. See, now, of course, those rocks show, but this is kind of what I was trying to demonstrate. Do you see how this asphalt kind of blends into the gravel, and you don't get a really a definitive line? Now, if we were to change this, not the tiling, this fall off. If I were to change that fall off back to say 5 meters, you don't get such an abrupt jagged edge, right? But you do get some. So again, we could click on this. We could drag this in to intersect the gravel. We click on this to drag this to intersect the gravel, and now you see kind of how it doesn't give you that smooth edge, and it just, to me, I think it makes it look nicer. It makes it look better. You can do the same thing with the gravel here. Fall off. Let's make that a 5 meter fall off. There, you see? Now, eliminate these boulders and rocks all over the place. Why they're there, I don't know. You could lift this up to get on top of that, but we're not going to. We're going to change this back to an asphalt. I used to think that there used to be apron in here, I thought, but maybe not. Let's use a darker apron. Yeah, there we go. We'll use that one. We got that one selected. We click on that. Huzzah! And there goes the rocks that disappeared. So that's kind of our aprons. Don't be alarmed about these different discolorings in here like that, because that's actually where the buildings are going to be placed. Okay. So so far, let's just kind of review a little bit about the things we talked about before I wrap up this version of the video, this iteration of the video. This version of the video. Let's go with that. We've removed the buildings. We've kept some of the buildings that we want. We've removed the buildings. We've removed the taxiway. We've removed the runway. We've added in new taxiways and new runways, and we've added in some aprons, and we've removed the trees that we wanted out of here. We've pushed back this property line a little bit so we can put our building here, and so that's kind of what we've done to this point. If you go back and you look at what, if you go back and you look at what this looked like as compared to what the default scenery, what it looks like, you'll see there's a significant difference that we've done. In the next video, we're going to start placing some buildings. We're going to start probably refining some of this stuff. We're going to connect this here. We're going to create taxiways, airport parking spots. You're going to do some more of that real dressing up the airport a little bit. We're probably going to get rid of some of this edging here that's here, which I don't like, so we'll probably use something like called fall off. When you use fall off, interestingly enough, when you use fall off, noted that this is the line of the apron we created, but the fall off makes it larger. So if I were to use, for example, on here, if I were to use a 5 meter fall off, but the taxiway is 15 meters, I'm actually going to change the taxiway from 15 down to 5, because I'm going to use a 5 meter fall off on either side, which is 10 meters plus the 5 is 15 meters. So just keep that in mind if you want to kind of look at that stuff and make it a little more closer to what you want. You have to remember that as you add material, you must take it away from from the original one. Okay. I am Raymond, and this has been a Stream Gamers production. Saying it all official like means it's really important. It's not. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned some stuff. Stay tuned for the next one. Like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. I appreciate them. It helps to get the video in front of viewers, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So that would be great. Don't sweat the little things. Little things will look after themselves. Deal with the big ones that you can deal with. Those ones that you can't, don't sweat them because you can't do anything about them. Make sure you can't do anything about them, because typically if you're worried about something that's a big item, and you haven't resolved the fact that you can't do anything about it, maybe you can. And most importantly, be kind. You know, we're all of us living on this big hunk of earth and rock, and we're all living together, and it's better to live together in harmony and peace and kindness and so forth, rather than what is the world as a whole in turmoil. This is my life choice. Everybody's got their own choices, but I recommend being kind and waving and smiling at people, and it's a good feeling in general. Anyways, Raymond Duick, Stream Gamers. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you get stuff out of this. Like, comment, subscribe, all those wonderful things. I've said it 1,000 times. Goodbye now.